Hey there. So in this first video, I just want to explain a little bit about what animation layers are and hopefully show you a little bit of how powerful they can be. So I have my best animation I've ever done for my project here. We've got a box moving up and down in Y and moving left to right in X. So for this project, this is what I've been asked to do, and I submit it to the client. And they come back saying this is absolutely brilliant, but we've had another discussion, and actually we want the box to finish up high at the end instead of staying on the ground plane. So we come into our graph editor and we've got our Y position keyframes here, and so we begin changing our animation to try and address that feedback. So this takes a little while, especially if you've got something more complicated than a bouncing box. If this is a character and the client's asked for a different thing on a walk cycle, then this is going to take some time. So we spend all that time adjusting, and then the client says, well, actually this is great, but it's got to stay along the floor first, and then towards the end it needs to move up. So we've already made those changes, so we have to come back to our original animation and then do it again, and it's really hard to compare how the changes you make compared to that original or the last version. So this is where animation layers come in, because let's just reload that scene. So with animation layers we can make all these adjustments very quickly, but we can keep the original animation untouched. So we can try things out, we can edit and manipulate the animation path without ever destroying our original animation. So let's come back to our box that we're submitting. This is our first iteration that we've submitted to the client, and they say, hey, we want the animation to finish up high. So with animation layers, this is easy. We've got a base layer, which is our base animation, but we want to create an offset. So we'll create a layer. We'll just call this up. And so we've still got our animation there. We select our base layer. You can see our original keyframes are there. We select our up layer, and you can see our clean timeline. So if I come to the end, all I have to do is raise this up, and without touching the graph editor, we've made that change that the client wants. So we submit this, and then the client says, oh, actually what we need is the animation to move up towards the end. So what we can do here is, let's say we will keyframe that at 100, and then in fact we'll keyframe that at 0, and that one at 0. Okay, so it means I've got original animation till this point, and then we make another key at the end, 100%. So you can see that influence of our animation layer doesn't start till frame 60, and then it starts to raise up. So you can see there, that's a real easy change with animation layers, and we've still got our original here. We can flip between them, A/B between them, so we can see the difference, and it makes making these changes really easy. We don't have to go in faffing about in the graph editor, moving keys around. We can just literally control things from here. So what else can we do? Let's create another layer, And let's just key this in place here. So let's say we want to kind of squeeze that. So if we move this in X here, we can actually just really adjust how that animation path is working. You know, we can really manipulate that. So let's say we want it over here like this, and we've got our weight control here as well. It also goes into minus values there, you can see. So this is just really, really quick, and you know, it's a lovely way of adjusting your animation. So let's try something else. Let's say we're going back to our original animation here. Okay, so let's say we've got a different client, we're on the same project, but maybe we've got a new director, and they say, right, I want you to go back to how it used to be, but I want you to fade this bouncing in. So how would we do that? Well, with animation layers, that easy. I've created this new feature yesterday, and this is based off some of the Maya animation layers behavior. So what we can do, we can actually extract animation into a new layer. So I click extract. This is something the Maya doesn't do. This is an addition I've made. We can actually select which channels are going to move to that new layer. So I actually only want to adjust the Y value. So I can extract that animation. We've got the keys here on our new timeline. If I turn this off, you can see actually that base layer has no change in Y at all. You can see down here the Y value doesn't change. So that Y animation has been extracted onto this new layer, and we can adjust how much that's been influenced. So we can, you know, really control individual channels. You know, a ball is bouncing too high, so oh, we need to reduce it. We just, you know, there we go. And we can merge that down into our base layer, or we can even, you know, we can keyframe this. So let's make 2 keyframes there, and then one in the middle. You know, we can just completely manipulate that. Or if we just want our original animation, just remove that envelope and then merge that back down, and then we're back to where we were with our original. Okay, so here's an animation with we've got a looping walk cycle made with Rigit, and you know, we want the character to do a few more things than just walk. So let's say we want him to carry a box. So without animation layers, you know, it's a pretty big task to get him change this animation for him carrying a box. We've got to remove all the animation on his arms. We've got to change his posture and all that stuff. But with animation layers, this is super easy. So first off, we've got this arms layer. I set it to be replace the animation. So in this layer, you can see I've got the shoulder, elbow and wrist of each arm, and this is replacing. So all I'm doing, turn that on, and you can see that's actually replaced our keyframes there. We've still got our original arm swing. But now we've stopped that with an animation layer. So let's say, you know, we need this, he's holding his box, there we go. and we want him to look like he's struggling with the box a bit more. Maybe he's leaning back, you know, it's heavier than we've got it looking here. So here I've got a lean layer which I created. This has just got the spline control, spine I should say, spine 1, 2 and 3, or 2, 3, 4, and you can see they're selected there. And all I've done is create a new layer and change the rotation. So this is making him lean back while he's carrying the box. We have full control over how that influences it, so we're on our lean layer. We can actually get him to lean back loads more. We can even animate this envelope, so he's, you know, not just doing the same thing. Then we need to make him look like he's you know, struggling a bit more there, leaning back. And then I've added some animation on his head, so he's kind of looking forward. Maybe that's too much, so we just reduce that. I mean, that's a huge difference just with oh, it's really heavy now. So we could perhaps enter get a new layer for the root. I'm just going to call this root center of gravity. Okay, and what we can do here is just literally, you know, play about with where that center of gravity is. And we've created something completely different. We'll probably do move path as well on here. Let's just try that. So we can actually try this out in different positions to get it looking right. And all the while it's non-destructive. You can make him lean forwards if we want. He's looking sad now. And we can, maybe he's not holding the box this time, but we want to just dial back the arms. So let's just reduce the amount of arm swing on there. Let's make that 80. So that's replacing the arm swing, but just letting 20% of it through. So let's go 50%. Try a bit more. Let's go 70%. So we've got a little bit of that arm swing coming through. Maybe we want to adjust those arms again, so we just come in here. I'm just going to make them dangle a little bit more. And now, just within a couple of minutes, you know, we've got something completely different. And we can bake all those down. Merge selected. And now we've got our animation there. Still with only those 3 keyframes on the arms. A few keyframes on the root, and we've made that huge change, a variation, and it just works.